What's going on, lawn care freaks and geeks? So I just wanted to share with you my mowers, why I use my mowers that I use, what sort of situations each one is best for, pros and cons of each one, etc. First of all, they all have the same engine, GXV160. They're not all the same age, but virtually all the same condition. That's a HRU196, and that's a HRU216. So there's different versions of this one. This is Kubota's version. This is the Australian commercial version, the W821SC-AU. These are more expensive than the other two, but a lot of people don't like these Kubota ones because they're significantly heavier, and there's parts of the body that aren't particularly tough as nuts, like the deck. You know, that the bolts which connect the mower to the handlebars of the mower, they snap all the time, so it kind of defeats the purpose of you know, the heavier, stronger deck, because this mower uses more fuel and it's harder work on the body than the other self-propel. So it's rather aesthetic. It's an aesthetic status thing rather than an essential mower. But the reason why I have this, I don't just use the other self-propel all the time, is because where I live, you get ground that's really dry, really hard, dry ground, and you get potholes and dips in the ground where you're going over it. Sometimes that body rocks around. That body gets beat up by the ground as it's driving over it. This thing is designed to cop all that force, whereas the 216, not necessarily all the time. Plenty of situations where I've been using this and the wheels are busted, the suspension's busted, because I've been going over, you know, hard, uneven ground. I haven't had that with the Kubota. It's done great, even though it doesn't have the suspension. It doesn't spring up and down like that one does, but it just takes more shit. So that's why I use it. That's why I haven't completely got rid of it, because it comes in handy for those jobs. But a lot of those jobs out in the field, those paddock type jobs, I just use a big whippersnipper for. Nowadays, you know, it's better than using a ride-on or one of these to push through. So, you know, when I am using the self-propel, a lot of the time it's this baby. But the one that actually hits the hardest, the most powerful of all three, is the smallest one. It's got the same engine as the other two, but smaller cutting diameter. Same force, but it doesn't have to swing as much. The actual weight of the blades, the actual grams of the mulch that's processing into the catcher or out the back, it's less than the other two. So it's got more power to allocate to the actual rotation. The only difference is you got to push it yourself. But this is what I want to explain. This thing weighs about half as much as this, and about 3/4 the amount of weight as this. When you're actually pushing it, it's not that difficult. When you're pushing one of these, very difficult. You got to use the drive. So if you are going to use one of these, and you want that benefit of it cutting harder, having that better vacuum, that better suction, that better look, that finished quality look, you've got to be an athletic type person to use that day after day. Uses less fuel. That's another benefit. Uses less fuel. This thing, on the other hand, chews fuel because it's heavy. It's got to drive all that weight. So it's using a lot more fuel, using a lot more of your shoulders. You don't want to get bursitis or anything in your shoulders, your elbows, doing all of that all day. I can mow with one hand with that thing. I turn that thing with one finger. I just turn it like that. It's nothing. No stress on the shoulders at all. The 216, sort of the best of both worlds. Significantly less weight than this, but not too heavy that you can't you wield it like a normal mower. So these two, they're putting power into the drive at the back, the self-propel drive. That one isn't. These have longer blades, bigger decks, so they're processing more mulch. That's smaller, so there's so as you can see, there's pros and cons. The cons, I want to talk about the cons with the small one, because we've highlighted how it's better than the other two, objectively, but there's cons to it. You got to be the right body type. You got to be a dexterous. You got to have lots of stamina. You got to be able to walk for hours and hours. Lots of walking, because it's 2 inches less per lane, per strip that you're cutting. So you're doing more meters of walking per job. But if you're a walking type and you're a power walker, you can move faster than if you're using the drive with these two. You can actually move faster per second. But you've got to be the body type. So that's the con. The con is you've got to be fairly physically up to it to be using this day after day. You don't have that self-propel. Another con to it is professionally, it sort of makes you look less professional. Something like this or this makes you look a bit more serious to the customers, but obviously to the professional, the looks aren't really important, but it is a real dynamic, something you do have to consider. Like, will a smaller mower like this make me look unprofessional in the situation? So another positive, and I'm talking about the cons of the smaller one now, but another positive, in yards that are wet or that have soft roots, when you're turning corners and you're taking off, you've got to push these first before you hit the drive and start using the self-propel. If you don't, the wheels dig in. They leave mud marks, they leave scratches and stuff on the ground. That never does that at all. You can mow boggy yards with this. You can put the wheels through water like that high. Have the deck up max and cut grass along the surface of the water, and it won't leave wheel marks. These two do, and especially this one. That's another thing that people don't like about these. The deck weight itself just does not justify the benefits you get from it. you're not throwing these off of the fucking World Trade Center, you know what I mean? You just mow lawns. Anyway, so I might do a full day with this. Next day, I'll do the full day with that. It all depends on what jobs I'm doing. And there's a niche, you know, you can do residential villages with something small like this. If you're trying to do it with this, it's going to take longer. It's going to be fucking wheel marks everywhere. More fuel. More physical energy expended. But if you're doing big yards, that's going to be a waste of time taking that out. You're doing more meters with your feet, you're wrecking your body. Taking more time to do the job because you're not getting a big enough cut as if you're using a nose tube or a ride-on. So it all depends, you know? So basically, if I had to speak objectively here, I'd say don't get one of these. Especially don't buy a brand new one because they're fucking expensive. They're like $2,000. $2,000 in Australia, whereas one of these brand new, at most like 1,800. Brand new 196 is about 1,200. So if you're looking to buy something new, or even if you're looking to buy used stuff, fucking start with that, man. And just target jobs with small blocks, tight spaces, hard access. Access points where you've got to go over pavers and rocks and all that sort of stuff. These will leave a mess. These will scratch rocks along pavers, along top of pavers. They'll have a negative impact on your image going through those areas, as opposed to if you've taken one of these. Then you don't leave a bunch of mess. You don't leave trails of rocks and, you know, scratches and stuff everywhere. So start by finding those jobs with that. You can make a killing with these. Some days I've made over $1,000 just on my own using those. And that has just been sitting at home doing nothing. So it depends what jobs you're doing. Now, what the fuck is going on here with this bungee cord? If I'm hitting a really tall yard, I don't use those. I use this one because it hits the hardest. It's got the most output. What a lot of people don't get when you're doing that sort of mowing is you've got to cycle the fucking grass or you will destroy the fucking mower. You won't get the power out of it you're looking for. All that grass you're cutting under there, it's got to fucking come out here. A lot of people, when they do that, they got the flap all the way down. And that grass, some of it comes out there, down the bottom. But most of it is getting caught up in here and going under, out the bottom. So that's why you get those huge clumps of grass instead of a consistent spray of fine mulch that's been finely mulched. It's a whole different look once it's finished. It takes less time if you've got the flap up. There's different ways there's different things I do with that bungee cord, but yeah, you gotta have that grass coming out the back so that the engine can maintain its maximum output. It doesn't get bogged down Because over time, that's wearing out your cylinder and your piston. That's overstressing the actual machine. You know, it might be messier having the flap up, having stuff coming out the back. Sometimes you might get the occasional rock or like a piece of star picket, but you don't have it up all the way. So that comes flying out and hits you in the fucking dick. You know what I mean? Just comes out, bang onto the ground on your shoes or whatever. And then it's not a problem. But yeah, so many people I see, man, doing paddocks and stuff, and they've got the catcher off, but they haven't got the fucking flap up. And you can just see the mowers struggling, and whatever grass is coming out from underneath, and it's big, shitty clumps. What mulch does, when it compacts like that in a tight space, it squishes in. It becomes resin, like a wet, hard clump of like horse shit. And when you have that activity inside the deck while it's running, while it's spinning, that stresses the shit out of the mower. It's like putting it in fucking concrete and trying to stir concrete. It's just not designed for it. Japanese people, when they make these fucking things, they don't know that shit, dude. They don't understand, like, Australian fucking ecology, man. They don't understand the type of shit we're cutting. So that's something that's really important to understand when you're doing that sort of work with these things. And even though these are bigger, same fucking principle. Get that flap up, baby. Don't have the flap down. Really important. And it looks better too. It comes up not looking as fucked up. Anyway, back over here. I don't know about you guys, but I love having height adjusters on every wheel. One time this guy hadn't paid me for like 4 or 5 weeks, and he wasn't responding to my texts or anything. You know what I did? I put this side up on max, and I dropped that side down to minimum, down to the lowest level. So the mower was like that on an angle. And I just cut along the front of his lawn a big, like angle, just scalp into his yard and left. You can lift the front up and have the back down. And when you're pushing into long, heavy grass, it makes it easier to cut like that, as if instead of it going flat like that, you're eating into it with the whole thing at once. And it cuts grass easier when you do that. So I take that out into the big paddocks, you know, and it's tough, and it deals with whatever, you know, crazy shit you're driving over, rocks and pits and potholes. But yeah, majority of the time, type of jobs I do, I'm using this most of the time. Because it's pretty much the happy medium. Anyway, guys, I hope that is helpful for you guys if you're out there trying to make money doing lawns. And this applies all over the world, wherever you are, America, wherever. This is what you want to be using, man. All right, guys. Peace out.